Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are talking about crypto because crypto is dead. Now, before you start throwing shade at me here, I'm stealing this title from The Spectator, an article from The Spectator out of the United Kingdom here, which I thought had a really interesting article on this with basically talking about the recent hits that cryptocurrency has taken. And so now that I have your attention, let's start with some of the key points from that article. And we're going to start with a direct quote by author Ross Clark, who has basically a really seriously interesting take on this, and I find this absolutely fantastic. And I quote directly, "The warning sign for cryptocurrencies is not so much that they have crashed, Bitcoin is down 50% from its peak last November, but that they have become boring. Bitcoin has suffered many a crash before, yet bottom feeders quickly rushed into the market and sent the price rebounding. This time around, there is little sign of any enthusiastic speculation. On the contrary, a brief rally in March fizzled out as quickly as it begun. Bitcoin now looks to set a plunge below its previous peak of 31,776, reached last July." Now, I think that's really cogent analysis here, but Mr. Clark wasn't actually done, and I've got some really interesting quotes before we start talking about my thoughts on this. Now, to quote Mr. Clark again, "Many thought that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies would turn out to be a hedge against inflation. Those hopes have been dashed. While most currencies have been devaluating against real-world assets, cryptocurrencies have been falling in value faster. As for the other long-term incentive to hold Bitcoin, that might provide a stable wealth store from the prying eyes of the government. That started to decay a while ago as governments got better at tracking down cryptocurrencies." And I actually did a video on that about that couple that tried to launder billions in cryptocurrency and were obviously caught as they were able to track it as it was moving from various blockchains. That is fascinating, and we'll talk about that in a minute here. Now, on top of this, he also dives into what I've been talking about here, but also on my nationally syndicated radio show for some time, that cryptocurrency is really looking like a pyramid scheme that is finally catching up to itself. And Ross Clark writes as well, and again, I quote directly, "They are clearly little more than a pyramid scheme, machines for redistributing wealth from players who are late into the gold rush to those who were early. And like all other pyramid schemes, they have a brief and finite life. Many of these new get-rich-quick schemes like NFTs have really come and gone." And I've done videos on that, talked about that on my radio show. As I mentioned, recently the first NFT that was bought for like $2-3 million. I'm sorry, the first tweet by Jack Dorsey was bought as an NFT for $2-3 million. And the guy went and tried to sell it like a month ago or so, and the highest bid was like $288 or something like that. It was under $300. Obviously, he was expecting to get something like $40-50 million, but that was a shot across the bow. And then you look at the whole Bored Ape data breach on top of that, and it's really becoming pointless because even though NFTs are unique, all you do is own a unique bit of code on the Ethereum blockchain, but everybody can basically take a picture of what you got, so who really cares? So that is, I think, pretty interesting and cogent analysis. But finally, he wraps up with this thought, and then obviously we'll dive into my thoughts on this as well. But I wanted to quote him directly on this because I thought his writing was succinct, and the point basically that he made, it just made it easier for me to take notes on, but I think he did really good. So Mr. Clark, if you're ever in Chicago, I will totally buy you a drink. I'm obviously giving you a lot of shout outs here. But to quote him one last time, "Cryptocurrencies face not so much a rapid crash as a slide into nothingness." And that seems to be the case here. So let's look at some of the stats in the last few days. Now, as I'm recording this is actually Monday. Basically, I'm looking at the time here. It is 5:18 p.m. Central Time in the United States. This is Monday, May 9th, but I'm posting this Tuesday morning. That would be May 10th, just so you know. So if something happens overnight, we'll see what happens. But as of May 9th, this is what happened. This is what is happening in the last few days, according to CNBC. 40% of Bitcoin investors are now underwater. Those would be the ones Mr. Clark was talking about that were late to the game. In the last month alone, 15.5% of all Bitcoin wallets fell into an unrealized loss as the world's most popular cryptocurrency plunged basically to the $31,000 level, basically tracking tech stocks lower as well. On top of these stats, analysts from Glassnode also noted an influx of, quote, urgent transactions amid the latest sell-off, in which investors paid higher fees, indicating they were willing to pay a premium in order to expedite transaction times. The total value of basically all on-chain transaction fees reached 3.07 Bitcoin over the last week. That is the largest yet recorded in the dataset, meaning people are paying a premium to dump Bitcoin right now. And obviously, as that price goes down, here we are. Also, during this sell-off over the last week, over $3.5 billion US in value moved in or out of exchanges. That's the largest amount the market basically hit as an all-time high in November of 2021. So where does this leave us? Where does this leave us? Early investors are still way up compared to when they bought, or obviously when they invested in mining. So in other words, when you were mining coins for 10 cents a coin and it's now worth $31,000, you are doing pretty dang good. You're not at your peak, but you're still way ahead of the game. Everybody else that got in speculation-wise years later are the ones that are essentially holding the bag. And so as basically we have this problem, early investors, as I said, are still way up compared to when they bought, but they're slowly losing value. And if there isn't an influx of new buyers, then the value will continue to drop as investors try and cash out when they can. Meaning, if you were an early investor, I think it's going to continue to go down. Now is the time to get out. You're still going to make an absolute ton of money if you bought, very early on. If you were like one of the first, or even if you bought it at, let's say, the $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 level, even $25,000 level, you're going to make money right now, but it's going to continue to drop. All indicators point to this. And this was one of the issues with cryptocurrency that I had from the start. Unlike traditional investment, where you basically own a piece of company, through stock or something along those lines, all you're doing is waiting for somebody to come along to buy your crypto for more than you paid, or you spent to actually mine it. Now, basically, along the way of owning crypto, there are also no traditional indicators of success or failure between seeing where the value actually is. So, for example, with stocks, you get things like dividends on your investment when the stock or the corporation is actually doing well. There's nothing like that in Bitcoin. Now, I think the next major blow is going to be when the criminals actually start abandoning specific cryptocurrencies, now that we know the government can track them. I've always said since the very start of this that when the drug lords, and this was before the boom of ransomware, that's how far back this goes, but when the drug lords ditch the currency, it will bottom out, meaning the drug lords are looking at this as it's untraceable by the government. I don't have to pay taxes, not that a drug lord would anyway. And so I can now safely move cryptocurrency, money via cryptocurrency throughout the world. And I'm basically sitting on gold. But if it's tanking and it's not doing well and governments can track it, then why on earth would a drug lord ever want to use Bitcoin? It'd be the same as using a dollar, and the dollar, quite frankly, would be easier to trade. So that is the basic issue that I've got here. This is going to be a red flag, I think, for the drug lords as well as the ransomware crowd, and so that obviously is a huge problem. Now, here's the thing. I don't think that while Bitcoin is down, or Bitcoin is, all these things, as the drug lords, etc., pull out, it's not that they're going to abandon cryptocurrency directly. They're going to have to find new ways. Nobody here has a magic 8-ball that will accurately predict the future. This is purely my speculation on what this is. This is something I've been talking about for years. So, will crypto die, as Mr. Clark says, whose title I ripped off from his article? Once again, I thought it was a great, really concise article on this. I think probably not. I don't think crypto is entirely going to go away. I think it's going to contract greatly. I think that's what's going to happen. It's really going to come back down to earth because it's been skyrocketing. If you remember when it first boomed around 20,000, when it was just jacking up, people were like mortgaging their houses to buy this stuff. And if you bought at that level and you're sitting on cryptocurrency right now, Bitcoin specifically, you're doing pretty good, but you're coming back down to earth. That's got to go. Also, I don't think that this should be confused with the blockchain technology itself. Cryptocurrency obviously runs on blockchain, but there are other applications for blockchain, and we've seen some promise outside of that, outside of cryptocurrency. Things like logistics, for example, have been using blockchain now for the last few years and doing it quite well. So I don't think necessarily blockchain is going away, but cryptocurrencies obviously have a huge problem. I think they're going to contract. I think we're going to see this bottom out. Is it going to die? If it does, it's going to be a slow death. And quite frankly, I think, like I said, right now is probably a good time to get out of cryptocurrency. That's my thought on that. But here we are. Obviously, feel free to disagree. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'm probably going to get a lot of hate mail. Nick, you're an idiot, and here's why. I'm totally cool with that. People are going to read the title and basically yell at me for being a moron as well. Also, understand that. I'm in the public eye. So, I still would like to hear your thoughts if you want to have a rational conversation with me. If you call me a moron, I'm probably not going to respond to you, but I will smile at your comment no matter how bad it is. And that is your news of the day. I really am curious to hear your thoughts on this. This is a hot topic, and cryptocurrency is really taking a battering right now. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please stay private. Thanks, everyone.